Happy Hour. I'm Scout, joined by Jerry Humphrey from AL.com, and we're here to talk about the IBOB and as well as the Four Nations tournament. So it was kind of a rough and rowdy week of sports. We had some great sports, had some not so great sports. One of the biggest parts of the weekend was the Iron Bowl of basketball in Coleman Coliseum. And with all of that, it was a great game. It was a great game. We'll go more into that. But along with that, on that same day, the USA defeated Canada, and we'll talk more about that later. And I will say one thing we really won't talk about, but the reason I say it's rough is the NBA All-Star game. We need to we gotta change it. We gotta change it at some point. So Jerry, we'll go straight to you. We'll go straight to you. So we're gonna do a little introduction today. So we do have Jerry Humphrey, originally of Charlotte, North Carolina, and now he is of AL.com. He's had a long road to get there. So I'll have Jerry, just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from and how you got here.
Nah, I'm blessed to be on this platform with you, man. You're one of the first few people I met, when I moved here. So it's great to see, how far we both come. But yeah, like you said, I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. I graduated college in 2022, with the aspirations of being a sports journalist. So, through a couple, blog sites, kind of like what you have now, I've kind of like moved up the ladder and now I'm in the mecca of SEC, country here in Alabama. So I've been enjoying it. It's been a ride. So yeah.
Yeah, and so what was the biggest change? Obviously, for those that don't know, he was covering high school sports in Montgomery for the Montgomery Advertiser. Now he's at with AL.com covering Auburn basketball. So what was the biggest change of going from Montgomery, where you kind of keep your own schedule, to going to Auburn, where you have, a strict media schedule? You got to meet all, or not meet deadlines, but you know what I'm saying, like meet all these time frames and stuff. They only have a certain amount of time you can interview and that kind of thing. So.
Honestly, it's really no big change because, with progression comes, change. And I would say the college level, the biggest difference is it's just more eyes on your work. The high school level kind of gave me the ground level, the groundwork to do what I'm doing now. Sorry, I had a phone call coming. But
You're good.
it gave me the groundwork to do what I was doing now. And I'm grateful for that step. Without that step, I wouldn't have been able to be where I'm at now. So I would say it's really no true difference, just kind of more eyes. So the content just has to be better.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And hey, we'll jump right into it. Obviously Jerry was at this game. I did not want to sell my kidney to go to this game, but hey, we have the Iron Bowl of basketball. And I'll say one thing as just an opening statement for this. As someone who grew up, there was a point in my life where basketball was probably more important than me than football. Like I have a Mike Conley jersey in my closet for a reason still. Yeah, hey, what a pull, what a pull. But yeah, but it's like the fact that basketball in Alabama has become just as important as football, or well, maybe some purists would yell at me there, but at least like growing in importance along with football. Obviously, Nate Oates has made a great program at Alabama. Bruce Pearl's made a great program at Auburn. Even when you look past that, obviously Bucky Ball and Samford, Andy Kennedy with UAB, and even we were talking about it in one of the other group chats. UNA is number one in their conference in the ASUN, and then Troy is tied for number one with South for the Sun Belt currently. And then there's a bunch of other ones. I think UWA is like fourth in the Gulf South right now. But yeah, but it's just a wild time for basketball. But back on the game, Jerry, what were your thoughts? Just like broad scope on the game, on your time in Coleman. Was this your first time in Coleman, or all that?
Yeah, no, it actually was my first time in Coleman. It was crazy. I started my day off. I went to the famous Raymond Jamma's restaurant, had a little pregame meal before work, and then I actually saw Mark Sears' mom and Roll Tide Willie in there. So I was just like, wow, this is like my welcome to Tuscaloosa moment. But overall, the game was amazing. Coleman Coliseum. A lot of people say it kind of looks like an aircraft carrier
Yeah.
because it's just so. I was like, it gives me warehouse vibes almost, but just the the crowd. I was telling my dad, I've been to NBA playoff games, regular NBA games, and this was probably one of the loudest crowd experiences I've ever witnessed in my life. And, coming from an ACC background, going to UNC games, NC State games, this was something that I've never, witnessed in a college basketball game. So, I would like to thank Coleman Coliseum, for the warm hospitality. But, back to the game side, entering the game, I told, a lot of people that the Auburn backcourt is going to be the differentiating factor, in this game. And, they stepped up to the plate. As of today, Denver Jones was just named the SEC Player of the Week because I would say without his performance, especially on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, Auburn doesn't win the game. And it's kind of funny. Earlier in the week, I kind of called him out like, Denver, you had this good game against Vanderbilt, but can, it go over into the IBOB? And I don't know if you read the article or not, but it definitely showed like he dominated. And I think that was one factor that Alabama wasn't expecting in Auburn. They look at Johni Broome, being the guy, being the leader they turn to. But in that second half, it was just straight backcourt work. And I think that's what made Auburn, leave out Coleman on top.
Yeah, and I will say one thing too. Also, timeout, timeout. I have not met Mark Sears' mom yet. I will say that because I know you said Mark Sears' mom and Roll Tide Willie, but I have had the chance to meet Roll Tide Willie, and he is a friend of the show, follows us. Trying to get him on here, but the schedule of a 22-year-old college student, and I don't even know how old he is, man. Love him to death though, but he's a great dude. I met him at a Biscuits game last year, and the funny thing was like I'd never met the guy in my life before, and this was really before like I think he had like 20,000 on TikTok maybe. I think he had like one on Instagram and one on Twitter at this point. But like this was before. Obviously, this guy's in like the millions, hundreds of the thousands, depending on the platform at this point. So, but he's always like he's never changed. Like I ran into him. I forgot where it was, but it was somewhere random. It was like some high school game that I ran into. Either it was either him or Chad Horn too. But yeah, but just great guys. And I will say, literally, never met him before. Walk up with a baseball. I'm like, hey, one of my friends who's a huge Bama fan, shout out Reed Scott Media. He's like, he's not at the game. He usually comes to all these Biscuits games with me. He wants your signature. And then the guy was just like, really? And I was like, yeah. And Rotai was like, all right, then, and just signed it. So yeah, genuine guys. I know we went a little off board there, but yeah. But back on the game, that first 5 minutes, I think half of Bama Twitter was ready to just delete the app, right? First 5 minutes, it was absolutely insane. I'm trying to scroll down all the way down there. So it's like at some point very early in the game, Auburn's up 10. Auburn's up, I think it was 15 at the very earliest. No. It was 12 real early, and it was 14 later in the game. But just the fact that they could like hold on to that differential for so long, just I think like that was the issue. It took a solid 5 minutes of Mark Sears and Aiden Holloway having a great like moment of that time, and I think Mark Sears ended up hitting 3 out of his 4 threes in this period. But obviously, and we're looking at the Real Sports app right now. I really need to figure out a way to just pop it up there. But obviously, that little jolt that they had, it brought the game closer. I know Bruce called a timeout right before, like right after it happened, just to get everybody, like where's our energy on defense? And it was like evident that first half, great energy. The start of the second half, they started toning it down, getting some fouls that they shouldn't have, that kind of thing. I know it was a little ticky tack on some of the fouls, like some of the fouls, especially in the second half, they weren't called in the first half. But I'm like, you got to deal with that, right? You can't blame the refs. You can't blame something else. You got to control what you can control. And I think in the end, Auburn did a great job. I know before the broadcast, and we'll still talk about it a little bit. Denver Jones had a great game. I think Chad Baker had a very underrated performance. A lot of people have commented on his defense and his instigating ability, but I mean, like, hell, the guy had 15 points on 4 for 7 from the field. I'm like, that's not a bad game. And I know like everybody talks about he's had a few games where he's gone, 0 for 2 from 3, 0 for 3 from 3. But hey, the man was what is this? 2 for 3 from 3? Give that man some love. I love Chad Baker, friend of the show. He follows us anyways. But And on as well as that, Denver Jones had 16 points while holding down Mark Sears on the other end. Look, I don't know the average person watching this on their couch that listens to Feinbaum or whatever. I don't know if the average person can go out there and drop 16 and then cover Mark Sears on the other end. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a
Yeah,
very
no, I
impressive
think
game.
you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. And even Bruce Pearl said something about it after the game. Like, the country needs to give Denver Jones his credit for being one of
yeah,
the best two-way players, not only in the SEC but in the entire country. Because, like you said, you're out there, doing what you have to do on offense, and then you have to guard one of the best offensive players in the league.
yeah,
And before that second half, the spurt you were saying, what was Mark Sears like 0 for 7 from 3-point range? So it wasn't, even though Mark Sears finished with his season average, it wasn't the best performance. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Denver Jones.
for sure. And I will say I know I yapped a bunch. I didn't even give him any time to speak before that. But my one of my biggest stats is plus minus, and Denver Jones had a plus 18, which is like, and I know plus minus, it's a fake stat. Nobody likes it. The NHL doesn't like it. The NBA guys don't like it, but it's a real thing, right? Like at some point, you see that number inflate or deflate. Like Tahad had a negative 14. And I don't think it was a bad game from Tahad. We're not calling him out there, but I'm just saying the difference. Like that's a 32-point swing right there. But yeah, and I mean on the other end, and we'll probably focus this on a little bit more. But Grant Nelson also had a rough game, honestly. Minus 20 on the plus minus, but I think it goes further than that. He was only 5-11 from field goals, and he only shot one three-pointer. Usually when you see these 5 or 11 or whatever, like even Mark Sears went 4 for 17, but he was shooting 11 three-pointers. So even though it's still a bad day at the office, it's kind of more of a, like yeah, but it was more of a bad 3-point, and he was getting covered by an elite defender. But yeah, but do you have any thoughts on the Auburn side of the ball before we kind of go on Alabama?
Johni Broome's performance
Hmm.
was one of those instant classics for me. I
Yeah,
think the stat that sticks out for me is his 6 assists.
yeah,
Being able to, lead this offense and being able to find your shooters, is just a very underrated skill, at his size. And,
yeah.
for him coming out the game, hitting 6 of Auburn's first 10 points, he was on a mission. And I kind of wrote something afterwards. Where does Johni Broome rank in a National Player of the Year race? After a performance like that, because in the second half, he wasn't as dominant as he was in the first half. His ankle was definitely bothering him. So for him to go ahead and finish this game out with a victory and a double double, I think that was very impressive for his National Player of the Year campaign.
Yeah, and I will say I'm trying to pull up the ranking when it comes to, or not rankings, it's the meters, stats. And it's not giving me players. Anyways, I'll find. Oh wait, here we go. Player stats, CBB. So in scoring, or wait, no, is there just a player ranking? Because I was looking at this the other day, and they had, yeah, so Real has a rating system, which is kind of broken. But even in just the 7 day mark, they have Janai Broome at 19th overall. But if you look at the full season, now shout out Yax for being first in this category, but he's already seventh. And this is a purely statistical thing. It doesn't add anything like, oh, what conference do you play in? Because there are some lower guys in here. But I think like in the whole nation. Like you look at this list, and I think it's Cooper Flag and Janai Broome as your 1A, 1B, right? And yes, Auburn and Duke currently are probably your 1A, 1B. I know Florida beat Auburn, but I think that's a little recency bias in the ranking. I think that they would rather rate Duke above them, but it's kind of like, hey, they just beat the number one team. We can't rank them below, right? But yeah, but I think that both Auburn, Duke, and Florida are all playing a little bit above their or like their mean right now. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but where would you have them? Because I would have them either 1A, 1B. I know you kind of said like as one or two, but like where do you have them?
Nah, honestly, I would honestly have Janai Broome at that one.
Yeah,
Whether it's 1A or 1B, it's really between him or Cooper Flag. And, they're both two different types of games, so it's kind of hard to compare the two. But what Johni is doing numbers wise, he definitely deserves a nod. Whether if it's not, the Wooden Award AP Player of the Year, he deserves to be in that conversation as one of the best college players this year because numbers wise he is. And old take alert that's kind of off topic. I think Auburn makes a push at Yaxel if he enters the
yeah.
transfer portal in the offseason.
I think Yax is headed to the NBA. That's a can of worms right there when we start talking about that. But it's a huge thing. Now I will say another Birmingham guy Auburn should have went after was a core who had some issues at I believe Kansas State. But yeah, but it was it is what it is. But yeah, but I will say to go on to the Alabama one. Okay, so there's two things here that I think we need to focus on Alabama. You had two players that actually did pretty solid in the game. And I will say Mark Sears overall that yes, he shot it a little too much, but his overall impact on the game was still solid. But two players that I think went grossly underrated, especially one being Diabate. I think Diabate deserved more minutes. He might have been gassed, he might have been something. I know he only went 4 for 10, but the guy was putting in effort everywhere, right? And in a game where you were kind of struggling for effort for a while, having somebody like that could have helped a long way. I think Phylon just needs to shoot more shots, honestly. He's out there for 23 minutes, he put 6 shots up. Past that, it was just a rough night for everybody. I know Aiden Holloway went 3 for 8, 1 for 4 from the 3-point line, only 10 points on the night. And even Mark Sears, like if it wasn't for the free throws, and you can say that for every like starting guard in the league, you can say for every starting guard, you can say if it wasn't for the free throws, a bad game would have been worse, right? But the one that I would point out 9 times out of 10 was Clifford, and I can't say his last name, Clifford. I'm not even gonna
More
try, but Big Cliff. The man makes buckets, right? Does he shoot the ball? Absolutely not. But he makes buckets and he gets rebounds, and they don't use him nearly enough. So this is Clifford's last. The last time Clifford had a 10-point performance was against Kentucky. He had 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks on January 18th. Guess what they did against Kentucky? They beat them by 5, and Clifford put up a lot of points. So it's like if they used him more, and then when they played UNC and beat UNC, he also had 10 points. So hey, I know, not a huge thing there, but hey, it could be. There's another game against Oklahoma where he had 10 points and they won by 30. So it's like like let the man cook a little bit, you know what I'm saying? He's a very athletic player. He does remind me a lot of I'm forgetting the guy's name. I literally asked his name in the press conference. It'll come to me in a minute. For Sanford. But he's a very athletic player. He's a very refined inside player. But it's just ugh. But did you have any thoughts about the Alabama side of the game?
No,
Statistically
I had
speaking?
to agree with you with the Mo Diabate. I was talking
Yeah,
to a guy on the Alabama beat at the game. Like, if at one point of the game, Mo Diabate was your only offensive, presence, Alabama's not going to win this game because
yeah,
he's guarding. He had to pick up Johni Broome after it looked like Cliff couldn't hang with him when the game started. In the second half, Clifford kind of showed up and really dominated against Johni. But at that beginning, Nate kind of leaned on Mo Diabate to slow down Broome, and it looked like it worked because, as you can tell, in the first half, most of the production started going to guys like Chaney Johnson.
yeah,
But Mo Diabate on both sides of the ball was dominant for Alabama, and I would have loved to see the rest of the team kind of match that energy. And, we just did not see it until the second half. And by the time, the game got too late, Alabama couldn't, they never took the lead. So I think Mo Diabate being that driving force for this Alabama roster, especially when they can't seem to score the basketball, that will help them, throughout this the rest of the season. And a testament to Phylon, I wanted him to be more aggressive. I thought he was a little passive this game, and a game this big, I think Nate was kind of looking towards Aiden kind of having a revenge game, depending on his stars like Mark Sears, but.
Yeah.
LeBaron has that green light in him where, he can take over whenever he wants. So I think, going down the stretch, Nate needs to kind of, whisper in his ear like, hey, if the other guys are off, you be our guy. We brought you in to play. So I think Phylon's going to take that challenge, the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I will say one thing too is like just I think the scheme that Alabama has and the players Alabama has do not match. I think that they want to be a more okay, I really don't know basketball that well, so I'm gonna struggle with like explaining this, but they want to be a more sound, more consistent team, get the best shot team. When for the longest time they've just been a chuck it team, right? Like they've just been a shoot the three, shoot the three, shoot the three, and they have the players to shoot the three, but it's like I think they're spending honestly too much time per possession to kind of like make the perfect shot happen when like the shots aren't falling right now. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's like Sanford being a virus in me because I've been watching Buckyball do full court press and then shoot the three ball for the past 2 seasons. But like shoot the ball more. Like if that's your thing, if your thing you want to be the 17, 18 Warriors, you know what I'm saying? Like you just gotta shoot the ball. So and I mean like overall, like let's look at the total stats too, and then we'll move on. But like they ended up shooting 5 more shots than Auburn. But guess what they didn't do? They shot 4 shots less than Auburn from the 3-point line, and then they only shot 19% as a team from the 3-point line. So this is where I start to go like, you can't attack a single player for that kind of performance, right? You can't shoot 38% from the floor, 19% from the 3-point line, and then attack one player because this is a team mistake, right? Another stat that they kind of failed in: 7 turnovers compared to the only 4 that they forced on the other end. And then they didn't pass the ball, 8 assists. Now, the one thing that they actually led in, which is usually one of those cornerstone stats, is they had 49 to 40 rebounds. So it's like they won the rebound battle. Shout out Clifford for his 12, but it's like they just didn't know what to do after. And they also had 7 more offensive rebounds, and somehow you lose the game by 9. It's, we'll see them back at the end of the season in Auburn. I know a lot of people have been like, hey, you should find your way in there. I'll have to be, like Jerry's intern for the day, or shout out Davis Baker, Davis Baker's intern for the day. But by Lord, like that's going to be a hot ticket for the end of that season. But yeah. And then a sport that Mr. Jerry admittedly was not as familiar in, but I'm getting more familiar in and want to talk about it more, is hockey. So I will open this as saying that this Four Nations tournament, it can't work in almost every other sport. Maybe soccer, but it can't work in almost any other sport in America. But the fact that hockey has this perfect little like hole in our country where you can put 4 teams from different nations together and they're just duking it out. And we're going to talk about one game because I've never felt more patriotic than when we face the boys up north. And when we face the boys up north, we usually win. So then let's set the scene, shall we? So the U.S. head up to Toronto or whatever other nation that serves ham as bacon, or whatever other city in the nation that serves ham as bacon. And we're up there, and then we go into their arena, and then they boo our anthem. And then they sing their anthem like it was some 8U baseball tournament. You know what I'm saying? And then, okay, so then after that, the Tkachuk brothers both fight somebody. And in my opinion, Hagel didn't land a punch. A lot of people were saying, oh, Hagel tore him up. Hagel literally missed every single punch. Then, like, Bennett got his ass kicked too. Oh, sorry. Bennett got his butt kicked too, right? And then the I forgot, I can't even remember who was the first one to get in the or who was the third one to get in the fight. Hold up. I'm gonna figure this out because he deserves it. Um they don't even have the third fight on here. That's crazy. Anyways, but there was a third fight about somebody, but it was also irrelevant because the American won. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, past that, and then they got all up in arms because Connor McDavid scored a goal. Right? Connor McDavid scored a goal. McJesus. Hey, you know what Connor McDavid didn't do? Connor McDavid didn't win a Stanley Cup final. You know? Anyways, so then past that, we score a goal in the 22nd minute. Gunsel. Game tying snapshot goal, as brought to you by Real. I really need to pop these up because there's a great little graphic that goes with it. But yeah, and then past that, okay, 20 minutes pass. Larkin, deep shot, snapshot goal. and that was a great goal. I might actually like pop that up on the screen real quick, in the post edit. But then Gunsel, bomb, snapshot, empty net goal. Mm, 3-1, we beat them. And obviously, I do believe that as of the recording of this on Monday night, that I believe the U.S. is currently losing to Sweden 2-1, but the final has already been set. The final will be Canada versus the U.S. in Boston. And if Canada wants to bring the game that they had on Saturday into Boston, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're not going to take it. We're going to go. We're going to go however we go in the tournament because I thought it would be 4-0, but we might lose tonight. But yeah, but we're going to handle it however we can. So yeah. So Jerry, do you have any remarks on the Four Nations that I could just cut a promo for?
No, that was a stellar promo. I was gonna say, do you have a good Boston accent? Like, I would love to hear
Boston. Look, oh,
that. Boston.
I've watched Jaws enough, okay?
Yeah. But I think for the final to be in Boston, what like a better city? Like I think it's going to be some crazy fans in the atmosphere, don't you
Hmm.
think?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, because Canada shouldn't be too far from there, so it might be some a nice bunch of Canadians,
Yeah.
bunch of crazy, United States fans. But I think that Boston kind of being a location for the final, I didn't even realize that. I think that's pretty sick.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the one thing that you don't want to do is piss off a Boston or a Philly fan. And the fact that you piss off a Boston fan is like it's just so it's gonna be amazing. And I apologize for anyone that gets hurt in the things that happen on Thursday. I'm not saying that people are gonna get beat up, right? I'm just saying I know how these things go. They've had the finals there before. I'm old enough to remember the NBA finals, the Celtics and Lakers going back and forth. Things happened every night, right? So if things happen, I sincerely my thoughts go out. But yeah, but you're going to Boston and it's not gonna be good. And see, I can't say Boston without saying it like that. Okay, sorry. It's like whenever I'm like I can't say Mexico anymore. I just say Mexico or whatever. Like you know what I'm saying. Like if you know the proper way to say it, you should say it the proper way. Okay, Louisville. Anyways, we'll go off on that on a further date. But yeah, but anyways. So that was the SCS happy hour. Oh wait, hold on. I got to do this. Perfect. So I know when to cut it. Yeah. Okay. So that was the SCS happy hour. We talked about the Iron Bowl of basketball with our boy Jerry Humphrey. We also talked about the Four Nations. Four Nations championship will be on Thursday night. I might try to do something live with that. I'm not exactly sure. Try to do live on YouTube. Obviously we have these live on Twitter just in case you want like a little, pre or whatever. But yeah, but overall, it's been a great weekend of everything. Oh, and I will say before we cut off the basketball All-Star game. Look, I'll keep it short and sweet. We'll get some short and sweet stuff from Jerry and call it a night. But we need to get rid of the tournament format, bring back East West, and then make the jerseys more like I I'm really not a fan of the home jerseys and away jerseys. Like I think we can get away from that. But like for the actual game, we don't have to bring back the black and white jerseys, but how the black and white jerseys had the team logo, you were in your team's number because I know like not this year, but in prior years they've like done like number changes too, so there weren't like multiple of a single number. Um, but essentially, so that like if I want to buy, a Kyrie Irving jersey, I'm not buying a number like 45 Kyrie Irving. It's a number 11 Kyrie Irving. But yeah, and get rid of like half of the like okay, we get the 3-point contest, the dunk contest, and then we get the Rising Stars challenge, right? And make the Rising Stars challenge rookies versus sophomores. It's not hard. Okay. Well, okay, maybe Jerry didn't want that. But yeah, but Jerry, go with some of your what are your thoughts on the NBA All-Star game?
Now you were cooking, you were cooking. I never really liked the rookies versus sophomores format.
Hmm.
I think they should go back to USA versus World,
Yeah,
where
that'd be faster.
especially this past draft where we saw all those, foreign guys get drafted high, like lottery. Let's do that. Let's see if, the US does produce some of the best hoopers or they're around the world. So I think we should do that format, for the Rising Stars. But I'm not gonna lie, I have a whole all-star rant because I was just brutally pissed off at what I
Yeah.
saw yesterday because bulk of the time in that, what was it, 3 hour time span, we only saw 40 minutes of actual basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not just I've never been a fan of the Adam Silver NBA. You know, David Stern ran it in an iron fist, and I think we need that again because I think for LeBron James and Anthony Edwards to wait last minute and not perform,
That's
that's kind of
stupid.
like a disservice to the whole thing. Because think about it. Think about how many people did not watch or turned it off when they didn't see their two favorite players playing. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I think Adam Silver, when he said, I think it was a success. No, dude, be honest. Like, you need to have that meeting with your superstar and say, hey, this is one of the biggest weekends, of the season besides
Yeah.
playoffs. We need to take this seriously because I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't watch none of the Saturday events. Granted, I was at work, but college basketball was a hotter ticket than All Star.
Yeah.
All the marketing for All Star, it really wasn't there, unless you was watching ESPN. But I wasn't too excited this year for it. I don't think a lot of people were. So how do we not turn All Star weekend to what the Pro Bowl has become with the NFL? And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, and it's like, and I will say one thing too, with how the MLB All-Star Weekend is, and like the MLB is like right at the edge of being traditional to being, new. And like there's still everything's the same, you're still playing for something. And I will say the fact you're not playing for anything, like the fact that the Lakers not having home court advantage of the finals will be determined in All-Star Weekend, like that needs to change. Same thing with the Pro Bowl. I think the Pro Bowl you need to like actually play for something, right? Even though I know at the Pro Bowl none of those teams are playing for a Super Bowl or whatever, but still, just like have it mean a little something. And even if it's just something so slight, like which team wears home and away jerseys, because obviously, Super Bowls, but just something so slight like that. But yeah, but my thing is that if the NHL is going so like so this is traditional and this is like new, right? NHL is going so far into the new, or like not new, into the traditional, and they're succeeding in it, and they're getting people to watch, they're getting people in, and they're like, even though, and I will say that both the NHL and the NBA are on TNT this year, right? But the fact that the NHL is on TNT and excelling on social media, excelling on ratings, excelling on all this other stuff, and yeah, sure, they're having to deal with like, ESPN still has the whatever they call it, goal horn or whatever, the red zone for hockey. But it's like that's better off because to watch the NBA, you need Bally or you need like this other stuff, or you need or they don't call it Bally anymore. It's whichever betting company sports or whatever, FanDuel Sports. And then past that, like you need all this other stuff. For ESPN, you just need either, or for hockey, you need ESPN, you need TNT, and then you need like ESPN Plus, and then that'll cover everything. And the fact you can get those three for cheaper than the $20 a month that FanDuel wants to charge you to watch one team, don't get me started. Don't get me started. I know baseball in that sense has the same difficulty, but at least with baseball, I can watch it the next day. You know what I'm saying? Like a Wednesday game at 12 o'clock. Am I turning that on the TV? No, I'm at work. I'm taking a nap. I'm doing something. Now, I might go to the game, but if I'm not going to the game, I'm probably just watching the next day if we're talking like a Wednesday, 12 o'clock game. But the fact that these are like prime time slots and it takes me either so much money or so much effort to watch. It's just ugh. And especially with the NHL being so, easy out there. The like soccer is like half, well, okay, we don't want to get on MLS, but non-MLS leagues in America are either on ESPN Plus or they're on YouTube in some way, shape, or form. And you can find all that very simply. Now the MLS, they're on Apple TV and also ESPN sometimes. It's weird that their TV rights get weird. But then past that, if La Liga, oh my fault, we were saying something.
Oh, no, no, no. After you done, I was like, I have a comment.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I will say just one final thing, and I'll get back to Jerry. If La Liga and the EPL are okay with their product being in America on ESPN Plus, so should any league in the US. Like ESPN Plus, I get that not all the rights necessarily work out, but get Fox on a Plus program. Get TNT. Well, TNT actually has TNT Online, which is really really good. Like not a lot of people talk about that, but yeah. But your point.
Do we have one more time for one more Freebird? I
Yeah,
actually just thought of something.
yeah.
So I don't know if you're big on Auburn women's basketball, which they're not the best right now, but
Oh God,
yesterday a freshman on Vanderbilt, Michaela Blakes, dropped 55,
I
setting
saw
an NCAA freshman scoring record. Like that's insane, dude. She scored 30 points in the fourth quarter.
that. Hold on, I do need to pull this
Bro, that's
up.
not insane to you?
I need to pull this
Dog.
up. Hold on, because I think did Vandy post it? Because I no, I literally I put a little thing out there of like call God because it was because like
Bro.
that's been
Blake's with
hold on. Like that's been I'm gonna pull this up and put it on the screen real quick. But like this has been Auburn's like battle cry, right, for so long. I forget where it comes from. Um, but it's just, like, call God or whatever.
I think they said one of their trainers said it, and they kind of just went with it.
Shout out Crane, by the way. Friend of the show. We're supposed to get him on, or try to get him on at least. Um,
Mm.
he's a dog. Okay, hold on. Cooking. Bang. I actually need like a little. Yeah, so D1 score, I was like, call God or whatever, because it's like 1 million people saw Auburn women's basketball get 50 pieced on regional television, ESPN Plus. Or this might have been on SEC Nation or SEC Network. But yeah, but this was, I'm not going to call it an embarrassment of Auburn women's basketball.
No, it was an embarrassment. It was an embarrassment. They were up 15 with 6 minutes left in the fourth, and they let history happen in Neville, and it wasn't even Auburn history. It was SEC history, but it wasn't even Auburn history.
No, no, no,
Like,
no,
what
no.
is going on?
Wait, reread that. That was not just SEC or Auburn. No, 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 no. That was D1.
Yeah,
That
a
was
D1 record. Oh,
national.
wait. It was her own record she broke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the crazy part about it.
Like you know who to guard. You know who to guard, which is the craziest part. Like you know the playbook. And it's like the whole thing. We were talking about this last year with well, we even talked about the Carver game with some of their guys, but like Cam Coleman. Like if Cam Coleman's on the field, you know who to double. You know who to double. And I'm sorry, Missouri, but you just gave that boy like $600,000 of extra NIL money for next year because it was like every time I saw that boy lined up in the outside receiver slot, boom. And Peyton Thorne looked crazy that game. But yeah, but whatever. We'll talk more about Auburn football
I'm
later
gonna
in the
say
year.
another rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole. But yeah, but it's been a great time talking shop with the gang. But we'll definitely get this posted tomorrow. I've had some technical difficulties through a bunch of different things. Obviously, for those of y'all that are in Alabama over the weekend, we had so much rain. We lost power here in the Gump for a good chunk of time. And my Wi-Fi was like terrible for like all of yesterday. Thankfully, I helped somebody move in yesterday. Shout out me, anyways. But every time I laugh, I shake the camera. My fault. My fault, y'all. Um, but yeah, but overall, great show today. Great show today. You can find him at Jerry Hump III on Twitter. You can also find him at AO.com under the Jerry Humphrey. And yeah, so you'll see him talk mostly about Auburn basketball and all of that for the time being, and then who knows what he could be in the future. He could be, the regional guy for what I don't know how the hierarchy goes in AL.com, but give this man a raise, AL.com higher up that's watching this video. He deserves it. But yeah, but that's all for me. And as always, I'm Scout. That's Jerry Humphrey, and we'll see you.